In this lesson, we are going to take this idea of this thing is really kind of a composition, and we're going to be trying to do the limit on this. And so remember, at the end of the day, or the main idea of this is that if you're doing a limit, we should need to be able to plug this in, right? If we can just plug it in, then that's our limit. So we need to make sure that zero is not a domain issue because that could cause a hole, but a hole has a limit. But we really want to make sure it's not an asymptote. So I know that zero is not going to cause the denominator to be zero because you're going to have a zero, zero, and a one. So we are good to go. So the idea of this was that if we had some sort of a composition, we could do this function within a function. We could actually do the limit of the inside one, get an answer, and then plug it into the other one. So you may or may not find this helpful. It's going to be helpful in a future kind of a thing. Because really we could just plug a zero in and then raise it to the 10th power. But the idea is we're going to do the limit as x approaches zero of this x to the fourth minus 2x plus 2 all over x to the sixth plus 2x to the fourth plus 1. And we're going to take that whole thing, which is going to get us a value. We're going to raise it to the 10th. All right. So plugging in 0, not bad. We have a 0 to the fourth minus 2 times 0 plus 2 over 0 to the sixth plus 2 times 0 plus 1. But all of that would then be raised to the 10th. Right, so we're looking at 0, we get a 2 over 1, which is just 2 to the 10th. And if you throw that in the calculator, if you happen to know it, it's 1,024. Okay, so if you're graphing this, we don't have a break at 0, so which means the limit is going to exist, so we can just plug it in and get that value. And if we have here, we plug in a -1. Just want to make sure that we're not getting a negative inside of the square root because that's a domain issue. So if we're plugging in a negative, squaring it, we're going to get 2 minus 1. We're going to have a positive. We're good. So the idea on this one would be, we try to help our cause here a little bit. We're going to do the limit of this inside, 2x squared minus 1 as x approaches -1. And then we'll take that thing to the 1/2 power, which is square rooting it. All right, so if we do that, we're going to be doing 2 times -1 squared minus 1, and then that value will be square rooted. So we have a 2 minus 1 is a 1 to the 1/2, and which is a square root. That's easier to think of it that way. No matter what, you're getting an answer of 1. And then on this one, doesn't feel like you should be able to do this, but this is a function within a function. So that means we can take the cosine, pull it to the outside, then do the limit as x approaches 2 of x squared minus 4 over x minus 2, right? So we can look at it that way. However, 2 is going to be a problem, right? It's going to make a 0 on the bottom, but it's also going to make a 0 on the top. You're looking at a 0 over 0, which screams hole to me. And so if there's a hole, the limit exists. So there's a value that this is approaching. It doesn't get there, but the limit doesn't care. So we're trying to figure out what we're approaching, which means we have some additional work to do on this one. So that cosine is just going to hang out for now. And we're going to do the limit as x is approaching 2. We're going to factor the top, x plus 2, x minus 2. And then you're going to have over x minus 2. And there's the problem. Because when we plug 2 in, there's your 0 over 0. Well, we'll cancel that factor. And now we're looking at cosine of the limit as x approaches 2 of just now an x plus 2. Okay, so I know there's a hole, but the limit doesn't care about that. The limit is all about what you're approaching. So we'll plug in the 2. So we're really looking at cosine of 2 plus 2, which means we're doing cosine of 4. And that's in radians. So I would just plug that into a calculator and we would get about negative 0.6536. That's in radians. Well, that's our answer. So just kind of as we're going through it, we do kind of need to double check as we're like, is this a domain issue or not? What kind of a domain issue? If you're getting a 0/0, you're most likely having a hole, which means most likely this is going to be factorable. You're going to find a way to cancel out that problem. And then you can continue with your problem. All right. So then next section, the next video, we'll start talking about continuity at endpoints.